All right, so this is an Islamic swimsuit. Now, I don't have a pattern because I had to sort of create this on my own, alhamdulillah, using different pieces. So the shirt and the pants were actually from Value Village. The active wear section where 72% is usually spandex, another 18%, or sorry, 72% polyester or nylon with a 18% spandex blend. Now, swimwear itself is also the same blend of about sometimes 78-12 or 72-18, etc. And if you go to Fabricland, they actually do sell the swimwear fabric itself. Now, ironically, they don't have any black. They only have print on solid. So the least tackiest, if I could say that, thing I could find was the polka dots, and I've never worn this before in my life. So yeah, anyways, so what I first did was actually use the pattern, and if you go to Vogue McCall, it's a website, and they actually have patterns such as this one. So basically what I did is I took this pattern here, which is at the back. I took this pattern right here, and if you see on the floor there, that's a size 8. And what I did is I added another 13 centimeters. Anyways, I extended it a straight line down to create the length, because otherwise it would have stopped right about the waist there. And what I did is I traced out the pattern, stitched it, etc., sort of pieced it all together. One of the trickiest parts of doing a pattern like this is, of course, using the right stitch type. So there is something called the stretch stitch that is in your sewing machine handbook. If you have a Kenmore, it would be F as the stitch, stretch stitch, SS, and the tension would be 4, but do refer to your guidebook. And what I could have done is I could have serged it and then done a stitch over, but what I chose instead to do, which I actually can barely remember now, but I did a double over, and then I just folded inside and then went ahead. It's kind of hard to see with this lighting. And I didn't bother making a new shirt or pants because I don't know how to. But the shirt and pants are not swimwear fabric, which means that it could fade over time. But I mean, it still gives you that sort of 4-way stretch, and it can still kind of flick off and all that. I'm assuming. I have yet to test this out. Now, one of the trickiest parts of Islamic swimwear is things like when you go into the pool and not having this thing sort of bubble up like Missy Elliott and Superfly with the garbage bag. So one of the key features was actually, I don't know if you can't see this, but it's a belt. So this little sash is just a very gentle tie, and basically it's just one piece. All I did was cut out the fabric and serged it over, so that's a nice little belt. Another key feature that I found from looking at websites is, this doesn't move, was the concept of, on the pants here, I don't know if you can see it with this lighting, it's kind of dark, but there's something called locks. So every swimwear I looked at, to prevent this whole thing from sort of floating up, they had sort of these little lock thingies. So what I did was, let me just undo one of them. On the pants itself, very lightly, I went in and actually just sewed it on right there. So it's kind of like sewing on a button where you have a bit of space in between, just doubled over, and then that's where the buckle is, and that way the pant itself is kind of cool. It's very subtle. And I did 2 of them. Usually most pants only have 1. Because usually this is all one length, but because I sewed this a little too tight, I decided to make it sort of have a slit on both sides instead of having it too tightly. So therefore I needed 2 buckles, and then what I did is I attached the cord to the skirt like this. Now the cord itself is this kind of material. It's like you can get it at Fabricland as well, and what you do is you kind of just sew the ends there. You can use a sewing machine very lightly, can kind of jam it because this is kind of tough stuff, but you can double it over, kind of similar to using the buttonhole stitch, which is when it kind of, you can keep the dogs up, and sewing machine, that actually means like those little hook things that push the thing through. Anyways, it's a lot better using machine than it is by hand. Now, and then what I did is I had the two ends, as you can see there. Now, the key with these ends is that because they do fray, you should take a lighter and actually singe it for about, I don't know, 3 seconds, and then it's gonna smell like plastic rubber and it's disgusting. And then what you do is you on the other end, before you sew it on, you have on the other buckle piece, which is right here. There you go. So that buckle piece attaches to the one on the pants, and what I did is I knotted it just to keep it in place. Now, it does pucker when it lifts for some reason, so one trick I could have done is that if the buckle is here, then the buckle on the skirt should also be here so it doesn't pucker, because I put this one a little bit lower than the actual buckle itself, so it kind of does a pinching thing. But, you know, it's a learning experience. And then the bottom, all I did is I simply serged it. I didn't bother hemming it over, although you could do that as well. I didn't put a lining either because I want it lightweight since I'm already wearing this. Now, for some women, you may choose to wear a bikini underneath as well, simply because underwear is usually not swim, chlorine, whatever proof, and you can go to eBay to buy something nice, something with more support. Some people use a sports bra as well. Now, in terms of this shirt itself, I didn't really do much. What I could have done is I could have put Velcro adhered to the pants so that the shirt itself doesn't lift, but depending on the shirt you get, if it's pretty tight, it probably won't lift, and this shirt for some reason is awfully tight, so I'm not too worried, or you can tuck it in the pants as well. Now, one of the tricks of doing a tank top is, of course, when you're sewing, you're serging all along your pieces, serging them along, then joining them. The tricky part is always joining the armpit and what's this thing called? Shoulder? Yeah. Just because if you didn't cut it perfectly, like I didn't, best thing to use is invisible marker, where it fades after about an hour of your markings, and I didn't have that, ironically. So what I did was I created these ties. Now, these ties are separate, they can come apart, and I tied them right here, and it gave it a little bit of a fashion trend. And because I was fearful of these straps kind of coming off during the water swimming, what you can do is you can take these and you can actually tie them at the back. And when you tie them at the back, let's see if I can move this little thing. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So what you do is when you tie at the back, it will give it a slight pucker at the back, kind of like this, but it's fine too. So tie it at the back, etc. Now, another style, of course, is just to have it cut straight at the back and tie right here, which probably would have saved me a lot of work, come to think of it. So doing this again, I might do it differently, although you'd have to probably make sure this part's quite fitted and perfect. So, and another key feature of this is a bit of darting that I did sort of here. It's kind of hard to see. And darting is basically doing a half sort of triangle smoothly, just to give it a bit of form, but not too much, inshallah. Now, the other part of this was the pants. So the great thing about buying pants already made is you don't have to make it yourself. And I'm just too lazy to. Now, what you can do is, these pants are actually quite long, so I actually trimmed a bit off. I trimmed off about that much. Depends on your height. You want it just maybe slightly above the ankle. And going to Fabric Line again, using that same cord that I use the flame to, you can buy these sort of, what are these? I have no idea what they're called. They're like $3.50. They keep those things in place. And what you can do is you can go ahead and serge your ends again. And then in turn, you have the cord, I don't know if you can see this, you have the cord inside while you do all the stitching as well. It's kind of hard to see this. So, so then what happens is you have a bit of cord sticking out. You will sew this middle here, sew all the way around here, the cord already in there, not having to thread. And then when you want to go swimming, you simply tighten this, pretend this is tightened, and then what you do is the extra cord that's sticking out, let's just say it's that much, you can actually tuck it inside, and then it makes a nice sort of pant leg that looks like that, but you know, even tighter, which is really great and a lot cheaper than the $200 swimsuits. Now, for those of you who are worried about the headgear, what I simply did, I did purchase a swim cap. So Speedo makes quite a few that can, yes, that's The Office playing on television. You can what was I doing? Oh yeah, you can purchase a swim cap from Speedo, Kuba? What was the name? Anyways, there's another company that makes them as well. And the whole point of swim caps is that they don't keep your hair free from the chlorine. In fact, you should rinse your hair with normal water before you go into the pool so that your hair has absorbed most of the normal water before you go into the pool and takes in the chlorine. And then of course you use swim shampoo and conditioner because chlorine can really dry you out. Now, in terms of the hijab, I didn't really have a clue, but I know one of my favorite hijabs that I use is this one. So that's the Amira hijab, folded in half where the stitching is. So what I did is I drew one side, so the side you see facing now, I drew that on the left side, then I flipped it over. You can sort of see there's a line right here maybe, and then flipped it over and then drew the other half. And then I serged and stitched this all, and I've pinned it, and we'll stitch it again to create a bit of a hem. Now for the cap part, I actually took the same sort of pant leg, and what I discovered was that this was a perfect straight line. As you can sort of see here, that's a straight line. So what I did is, I realized this is a semicircle, so then when I I aligned it sort of going this way, and then traced it, right, so it was like that. So what I did is I aligned it like that, that's a semicircle, then flipped it the other way, well I flipped the hijab the other way, and then created the other half. And so what was like, oi, you think things are easy to explain by video, okay, so what was like this, oh, where's my geometric shapes today? Okay, whatever. Okay, so it was like that. In turn, I flipped this over and then created the other half like that. And so what I'm gonna do, what I did is the trick with the pants is that I took the little, I don't know, seam here, and I use that to be the center of the hijab. Now, if it doesn't work, I can just use the same fabric, the polka dotty. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch this whole hem, and then I'm gonna somehow force it to be adhering to this, and then somehow it's gonna all come together. And if it looks dorky, then what I'll do is I'll replace the fabric with the polka dot fabric. I just thought it was a bit much. And the trick with this is that when you go to Value Village or any store, Value Village I say because this is like $4.99, and I'm sure this top version is $40, and same with these Nike activewear pants. They were probably $70 and I paid like $6 and whatever, you just wash it, get over it. So the trick with a shirt is you should get something that not super tight but not super loose. So this is definitely snug, in fact a little too snug. I'll have to either lose weight or just whatever somehow. I didn't realize what size this shirt was when I bought it. Otherwise, Value Village is pretty accurate in sizing. So the great thing is with the collar is that the hijab can tuck right in. So you throw on your swim cap and then you throw on your hijab. And in my case, these massive goggles that are hopefully gonna, well, they kind of match. And then you tuck it in. Now, there are different types of hijab swim caps. There are ones where they have like they kind of look like horse helmets where they kind of button in the center or whatever. And mind you, this is the pre-presentation of the swimwear. I'll find out what it's like when I actually go swimming next weekend, inshallah, and see if this all comes together. But I'm pretty excited. Even the sleeves are pretty tight fit. Almost a little too tight. I feel like a sausage fitting into a case. But hopefully I don't suffocate myself in my own suit. Anyways, so you have the ties, you have the back, and I'm going to go ahead and sew the hijab together and then tell you how it is, inshallah. Khair. Alrighty, so I went ahead and hemmed the entire inside by doing a swimwear stretch stitch. So that would be F as a setting, SS as a stretch stitch, and tension is 4. To do the serge, which is this edge here, I don't know if you can see that, this edge right here, that's using G, stretch stitch, tension 4, and again refer to your manual. Now, when I was cutting it, what was interesting was that when I was doing the one half, and I flipped it over and did the other half. Like I traced this and then I flipped it over and then did the other half. One side was bigger than the other and it was really confusing. So what I did is I went ahead and traced one side that was smaller and then the other end that was bigger. And then, I don't know, and then I did a slight, when I was using whatchamacallit, this thing, that thing, and I was doing it by freehand, very carefully using something like this to kind of, you know, hold it down. And say if I trace my line here, I would actually cut just kind of like that, very carefully, kind of like slicing a pizza. Just be extremely careful, no fingers in front of the blade, always beside and always children away. There's a safety part where you have to kind of grip it like that for it to pop out, and then when you release it, it sits in safely. Anywho, somehow when I, alhamdulillah, when I folded it over, it somehow does come out like this, but I don't know how that happened, because when I originally traced the thing, it was kind of strange, and even doing this part here for it to match up perfectly was a bit tricky, requiring a slight manipulation. Using a pen, which I highly do not recommend, because now it somehow actually bled through the entire fabric and you can kind of see it. Hopefully the chlorine will take care of that. Anyways, so I was using my sample here, the Amira, which is black, and not sure it's going to show up on camera, but the Amira hijab essentially has a stitch all along, right where your chin goes. This is where your forehead is, and then there's another stitch right about here. So I thought it'd be best to kind of show you, after I did the hem stitch, I folded this over as well, and then I took my little head cap thingy that was originally like this, I folded it over as well, and I kind of just tucked it in. Now the key is curve to curve, and the little straight part, which is the bottom of the pants actually, when I originally did it from that piece, curve to curve, it's going to tuck in like that and in. Now for this, I only serged the ends inside, and that was it. I didn't bother doing a fold over because I just didn't feel like it. Alright, so here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm gonna stitch this using the same strap stitch, which is called a Overcast. It's an Overcast, right? It's an Overcast stitch, which can use F or E. I just liked F. You could use E as well. It's up to you. I preferred F because it doesn't pucker as much as the E stitch. And the F, I don't know if you can see it, but the F looking more like that. So it's kind of like straight triangle, versus the E is like triangle, or is like ziggity, 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 ziggity. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stitch this, yeah, and then this is already hemmed, so no worries. That gives you a bit of chin room, because, you know, and I'm hoping this will fit my head. Somehow. There's stretch in spandex, so it's the forgiving nature of it. If it doesn't, then I'm kind of in trouble. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over. I think it's called a French stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch it by having, just like the Amira hijabs, where basically to do that stitch is you're going to fold over the fabric and then do again the same Overcast stitch, because Overcast stitch allows swimwear to kind of a stretch. If you do a straight stitch, what happens is it can break because it doesn't allow enough stretch, which is the whole point of a zigzag stitch, is allows a bit of stretch where you're guiding it through with the feed dogs being the teeth. When you're guiding it through, don't stretch like they tell you to, because the whole thing will ripple. And let me tell you how much fun it is to pull out these stitches. It takes hours if you don't know what you're doing. And if you ever do have to pull out the stitch, it's highly recommend you to kind of peek in there and then pull it that way, not do one side and the other side like I did for hours the other day. Oh boy, was that fun. Okay, so I'm going to do the same Overcast stitch here, and then I'll show you the final product, inshallah. One little quick thing, when you're sewing this, just like any of these pieces, like when I was sewing this, the whatever that is called, I first sewed sort of like the edges, and then I did like the, what is that? What's that thing called? The shoulder thing? Anyways, then only after did I add finishing details like the little ties on the shoulder, the sash, the side lockety thingy-mabobbers. So just keep that in mind. Now the same applies for the hijab. when you're pinning this, you have to pin it when it's folded in half like this, because that's the only way you're going to stitch it right. And then only after doing this from the inside out. So when you're doing the overcast stitch, you always have the right side will always be the straight, and then the left will always be the triangular part. So now the trick with this is after you've pinned it, it's gonna kind of do, like, it's not gonna lie perfectly flat, obviously. So just make a note of that. That I was first freaked out because when I looked at the semicircle to the actual rest of the larger piece, I was like, why do they not match? And then I'm like, okay, just trust in God, and then make a little dua, and I was like, wait a minute, if you fold it, that's how you can manipulate it so that it will fit exactly the prototype there. But I would have thought that it should have been more like that, and then that would have made no sense, because then it's like, I mean, you could make like a niqabi, scuba cap, you know, that works too, in which case you just kind of eliminate that chin part. But anyways, it'd be kind of cool because, you know, scuba outfits are really expensive. Anyways, so I'm gonna do that, and then afterwards I'm gonna pin that part and then do that stitch. So I just wanted to show you that really quickly, that when you're pinning this, it's a bit tricky because you have to pin it on a fold, then you have to pin this top part, which is also kind of tricky, and then when you're sewing it, you're gonna have to, you know, stick to the guidelines very strictly, and it leaves that bit of a gap for your chin, inshallah. Alright, so there is the job that Bunky the bear is modeling for you. Is a bit of a tighter fit than I thought, and I think it's because my sewing didn't allow, it should have allowed greater for this edge part here, which would have been this part here. I should have actually allowed about an inch instead of half an inch, because I think made it a bit tight. But I mean, it actually worked kind of well because that way it's snugger fit and won't slip. So Bunky the Bear is quite happy, and I basically sewed it from the side there. You can see it kind of works. Now, mind you, Bunky's head is kind of small, so being a human and all, your you know, head's gonna go that way, and then it would tuck nicely in there. And for those of you who are fearful of swimming, like I was forever, you can actually, if you don't know how to breathe underwater, I highly recommend goggles. There you go. Oh yeah. So these goggles are basically great because they cover the nose. When I ordered these, I thought they were for adults, but they're actually for kids. And they kind of slightly pull my eyes to the side, but I don't care because they're dorky, but somehow they sort of match the outfit. Maybe not entirely, but that way I can swim the best that I can. Anyways, so I hope you enjoy, and this project took 3 days and way too many hours on undoing the stitching. One thing that someone I know dearly would have recommended is that before you do a final stitch on anything, it's always best to do a simple straight stitch. And what that is like you stitch a bit, you know, space it out, stitch a bit, nothing permanent, very easy. And then try and put it on, because these dress forms, this mannequin you're staring at, although it'll say a certain size and you'll write a certain measurements, I would recommend you take a measuring tape and actually measure the dress form to make sure it actually is in fact correct, because I found it was inaccurate. It turns out I'm not as tiny as I thought I was, Masha'Allah, and that's how I made this thing too small, and then I realized I had to make certain dimensions bigger. One of the challenges with using dress forms is that they are expensive. This was from sewingoutlet.ca, I believe, and it went for about $99. Plus shipping, plus duties, plus taxes. It still came out cheaper than Costco. And it is the Singer 150, which would be the gray one. And it would be this model here, the Singer Dress Form 150, and that's for sizes 8, 10, and 12, although I find that there was a bit of a challenge for me, because if you have a bigger bum, like say you have a bum that's, so I don't know, just bigger, it's a bit challenging using this dress form. And so what some people do is, and this is the cheapest way, and you can find YouTube videos on this, is to put on a t-shirt, put on a plastic bag on top of the t-shirt, and get your friend to duct tape your entire like body, because dress forms, one of the challenges is that it's not really your body, it's your ideal body, but realistically, it doesn't have all the bumps and curves that this lovely ladies have. So basically you would have, I don't know if it totally works, but use duct tape. You can that gray stuff, and then you would, once you've kind of like wrapped it around, like mummified yourself all the way, you can snip it at the back, snip right through the t-shirt, so it's not an expensive one that you love, and then stuff it with stuff, and then hang it with a hanger somehow in your closet, and short of freaking yourself at night. It's a great way to do an alternative dress form, simply because this is quite expensive, and I don't know if I found it entirely useful, because I still had to try this on a couple of times, make sure it fit to my body size versus this dress form. But I guess for the sake of show, it's great, but it is quite limited, because sizes 8, 10, and 12 is, I mean, it's not everybody, right? So, and it has no arms. I mean, you know, who would have known? Anyways, but it is functional nonetheless, and it just looks pretty to have, and you can say you have one. But I don't know if it was the most useful thing to have, and you don't necessarily need to have one to make your own swimwear. Now, this fabric, just to let you know, it's usually $14 a meter, and I got about 3 meters of it. And I'm glad I did, because I screwed up a couple times, but it's enough to probably make 2 of these things if you bought 3 meters, give or take. And it's usually $14 per meter, but it went on sale for $6 a meter at Fabricland recently, date today being May something, May 21st, yes. So yeah, if you can get on sale, it's great, but you'll notice a lot of the colors are kind of tacky, so you'll have to kind of use your imagination. I probably could have tried something different, but anyways, have yourself a good day, and I hope you enjoy swimming just as much as I will.